Thank you all for joining us. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the Safety and Health Program and Employee Assistance have partnered together to bring you the stress and its impact on the body workshop. So I thank you all for being here today. And I am going to turn it over to Stephanie Sympathetic.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Semedeni, a nurse in Safety, Health, and Environmental Programs Division. And I've worked with Dr. Keir Maxwell, as she said, and the Employee Assistance Program to bring you today's seminar. And it is in recognition of May being Mental Health Awareness Month. So this seminar focuses on stress in your body. I'm pleased to welcome our presenter, Dr. Robert Ciprian, who is a practitioner of holistic medicine in Washington, D.C. Dr. Ciprian has his Doctor of Chiropractic degree and has also attained his teaching credentials with the International Board of Applied Kinesiology, and specializes in muscle testing with his clients. Dr. Ciprian has joined us previously for our Stress Free Day event, as well as this year's Spring Health Fair, and we are very happy to have him back today.
Kira and Stephanie for having me. I really appreciate it. So I'm Dr. Ciprian. I have kind of a weird story of how I got into all this. I was at first just going to be a chiropractor, working football players, stuff like that. I actually have good friends here at the Docks, like the Dallas Cowboys and Kansas City Chiefs and other teams like that. And when I started school, I got very sick, extremely sick, and by my first year, I pretty much couldn't even make it to my final exams and stuff anymore. So I started searching other things to do, started looking at all these seminars and other doctors and what else I could do to help myself, because I was sick ever since I was a kid, and the medical model never helped me that much. It got me out of crises, but never really got me 100% where I wanted to be with my health. Where I was with chiropractic was kind of in the middle. It was like half medical, half just physical, working on the body in natural ways. But then I found some doctors that pretty much fixed me almost overnight. They got things working better in my body, so my body could function better on its own. And ever since then, I've been focused more toward the holistic aspect of health, and I became an international teacher for the International College of Applied Kinesiology. So I've kind of taken on myself to learn a lot more what's going on than just the musculoskeletal and the medical background. And for the mental emotional piece, this is such a big thing that's not really looked at in a functional, holistic way. You know, the whole thing is, oh, we can't figure out what's wrong, it's all in your head. Well, I'm always like, good, let's fix what's in your head. There's a lot of ways to work with this. There's a lot of things that affect what's going on with the mental and emotional aspects of your health. So first, I kind of just took the list of disorders from the DSM-5, which is a diagnostic manual for mental emotional health disorders. Pretty much all those things on there happen because there's some sort of stress in the body. Now, stresses may be reversible, they may not be reversible. It just depends what's going on. To me, if it's more of a hardware issue in the body or actual damage to the nervous system, that's the hardest things to fix. If it's more of a physiology or more of a behavioral pattern thing, those are easier things to fix. And we're going to go over kind of how we look at this in a holistic way so you can understand better for yourself what's going on, and so you can find some solutions for yourself or people you know to help get them out of some mental emotional stresses they may be having. So, definition of stress. It's a pressure or tension exerted on a material object, a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Now basically, what is stress? Stress is when your body is out of balance and is trying to get itself back in order. So a short-term stress reaction is perfectly normal. If there's a zebra on the African plains and it gets chased by a tiger, it goes into a full-on stress mode, thinks about three things. I gotta take care of my body, where am I gonna run to, and how long is it gonna take me to get there? So when we're under stress, we do the same thing. The problem is, when we get stressed, us as humans, since our mind's so complex, we can keep ourselves in that stressed out state, or we could just put ourselves in a stressed out state just by our mind. Where the zebra, once the lion's not there anymore, it could just hang out and eat and everything's fine, just calms back down again. So the problem is when we get into these stressed out states and our minds keep it going, or we just kind of get stuck in these patterns. So the types of stress that we have here, mental emotional is a big one, right? Now this can be past emotional things that happen to us, or it could just be current type of functioning with our mind that's going on in the present times. There's two different ways. I call current things going on in the mind kind of the mental state, kind of how we trained our brain to operate, and past things are emotions. And we have the structural aspect. So if you fall down and hurt your back or your hip, I mean, that's a big stress in the body. Your body's going to go into a cycle where it's going to secrete different hormones to try to reduce inflammation, try to get your body working right again. And we have the physiology. Now the physiology, that's all your like cellular functions, that's your hormones, that's your digestion, that's how your blood chemistry operates. So if you have stresses that alter that, one could be nutritional deficiencies, another one could be toxicities of too much of something in the body. That's how we kind of imbalance our physiology. And then we have energetic stresses. Okay, we have electronic equipment all around us, we have cell phones, we have just sitting in front of the computer all day. These are different energetic things that could cause imbalances within our body because we have something called acupuncture meridians. Does everyone know what acupuncture meridians are? They're subtle energy pathways in the body. It's kind of like your nerves and veins, but when you would dissect someone and look in there, you can't see them. But you can use very sensitive electric equipment. You can measure them. You can even measure them on dead people. Even when someone's dead, in what they call a cadaver medical school, you can still find out where those pathways run through the body. And those acupuncture meridians actually are associated with the different organs in the body too. So stresses from electronic equipment could also affect those subtle energies in the body, which subtly will affect the organs and the function of your body. And when that happens over a long period of time, it'll build up toward affecting the nervous system, then the actual cells, then the actual organs. So things like that can long-term have effects on you too. Now, I put all of these into a pyramid. Now, say you have a physiologic stress. Say you just go home every night and eat your Ben & Jerry's and have a 6-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, right? That's a physiological stress in the body. Now, that will also imbalance everything else in the bottom of that pyramid, the base of that pyramid. That will knock the structure out of place. That can eventually give you headaches, low back pain because you're not taking care of the physiology. It'll have effects on the physical aspect of the body because it'll imbalance the muscles and the nervous system which control the muscles. It could also affect the mental emotional aspect too because as you're doing that, having things that aren't that great for you for a long period of time, eventually the biochemistry is going to kick into the digestion, and that where the digestion is where you make all your neurotransmitters for your brain, and also puts you in more of a stress state too, where it's going to put the brain back into that stress state also. Then we have the energetic, of course, if it could affect the mental, emotional, and the physiology, and the cellular function, the organs, and also the structure, it's going to block and upset those acupuncture meridians too. So just one thing in that pyramid could affect all the others. That's what we call holistic. So holistic, you have to look at all aspects of what's going on with somebody. Say I have 10 people with migraine headaches. There might be 7 different reasons those 10 people have migraine headaches. A couple might have the same reasons, but one person might be their neck's out of place, one person might be their diet, one person might be stress at work, one person might be something they're breathing or eating at home. So there could be all different reasons why someone would have a migraine headache. So we gotta really look at all aspects of their life and kind of figure out what's going on there. So that's kind of what I mean by holistic. It's not just, oh, I'm sick, so I take echinacea. It's looking at everything and finding out, why are you sick? Is it stress? Stress is a big depressant for the immune system. Is it something you're breathing, or is it something that you were just out in the cold too long, or you're wet clothes, or something like that? So there's all different aspects of why you're getting sick, and you got to just really play detective and figure it out. Okay, now how much stress can you handle? This is what I show people. Say that your body is that cup. All right, so you could handle as much stress as that cup could hold water. Now, if you're somewhere in the middle and you got lots of room on top to add more water, your body could take more stress. And you won't have some big problem crop up, like some big major disease or some big hurt or some big mental emotional problem. But when you keep adding the stress in there over life, and remember, you have the physical, mental, physiological, and energetic stresses. You keep adding those stresses up, and there's not enough room in the top of that cup to handle more stress. That's when big problems occur. So my job working with people is to start getting those stresses out little by little as much as we can so they have more room in the future to handle more stresses. And we're going to teach you how to get some stresses out of your life today too. Now, if you want to get more into reading about this and you're more curious about it, This is the classic book by Hans Selye called The Stress of Life. Hans Selye was a researcher, and he was a very bad researcher. He screwed up some of his research because he allowed toxicity to get into the tissues that he was working with, and he was doing the research. And he found all these stress hormones going on when he was doing the research because he was allowing toxicity and contamination to happen with his experiments. But then he realized, wow, contamination got into experiments. The adrenal cortex of the animals he was experimenting on enlarged. The adrenal glands are your stress glands. So they're like a backup system for your whole body. Your body has a problem, the adrenal glands have hormones for almost everything to back up your body. And when they enlarge, it means they're working overtime. He found that there was atrophy, which means shrinkage of the lymphatic organs. Now, the lymphatic system is part of your immune system. So the immune system took a toll and started depleting. And also, he found that there was digestive problems, stomach and intestinal ulcers. This was also happening to the animals where they got toxicity into the experiments, so the digestion was not working right. Now, if you look at every chronic health issue there is in the world, it goes back to pretty much these three things. The stress glands of the body aren't working right, they're overused, and they can't keep it up anymore. The lymphatic system goes downhill, or it becomes too much. We have like autoimmune reactions, allergy reactions, or stuff like that. So it can either go too much or too little. It's just not in balance anymore. And you have digestive issues where you can't digest your foods properly, you can't assimilate your foods properly, you can't get the vital nutrients you need from your food, which is like the gas that runs your whole body and all your cells in your body. So here's the adrenal cortex, and you can just see some of the important stuff in here. Now, when it comes to the corticosteroids, which are the steroids that are made in the adrenal cortex here, you might have heard of corticosteroids that you go to a doctor and they give you some because you're very sick. Well, because it supplies these hormones your body should be making on its own. You can see where they all start from. They start from cholesterol. So cholesterol is very important. It's needed in the body. It's like the duct tape for the body. It fixes anything. The problem is when the cholesterol gets too high and gets imbalanced, it's because you have so much stress in your body that your body's like, we need more. Your body makes 80% of the cholesterol on its own, only 20% comes from your diet. So when people are trying to eat a very low cholesterol diet, what could happen is their body needs stress hormones and it can't make them because you're taking the cholesterol out of the diet. Now, of course, you should eat good, healthy cholesterol from very good, whole, fresh foods. You don't want things like trans fats and cholesterols that are in artificial foods and stuff like that, because those are kind of mutated, not good, healthy cholesterols, and they'll bind to your cholesterol binding sites in your body, and they'll actually plug it up so the good cholesterol can't use it to make these good hormones for you. From there, you need the vitamins are in red, so B3 is niacin. Then you make pregnenolone. Pregnenolone they call the master hormone in the body because so many things are made from it. You make DHEA from it, which goes to testosterone and estrogen, and both men and women make both of those, testosterone and estrogen, just in different amounts. Pregnenolone makes progesterone, which also makes testosterone, and it makes aldosterone. Aldosterone is the hormone that keeps the hydration in your body, and also it keeps your short-term blood pressure under control too. So if you need more blood pressure, it'll retain more fluids. If you need less, it'll dump out fluids. But when your body's under a lot of stress, sometimes your body can't retain the hydration properly in the fluids. And this happens sometimes. I ask people, do you feel like you drink water and it passes right through you? They go, yeah. So those are the type of things that happens when your adrenal glands are under stress. You won't be able to retain the fluids that you need for your body to function well. Then from progesterone, with the assistance of vitamin C and folate and pantothenic acid, you make 85% of your adrenal gland output of hormones, which is cortisol, which is a pro-inflammatory stress hormone, but it's also very important. That's what spikes first thing in the morning, what should wake us up, and where we have plenty of energy in the morning, and we're hungry, and we want to eat, we want to get out and start our day. And then it also makes cortisone, which is the anti-inflammatory hormone, which they might give you to inject into a joint or put on your skin if you have inflammation that's not under control. And these two hormones, they got to balance each other back and forth. So neither one is bad or good, they just need to be in balance. And that's 85% of your adrenal gland output. So folate, that is from eating a lot of kind of leafy vegetables and stuff like that. That's where that comes from. Vitamin C comes from a lot of your good veggies and meats and stuff like that also. Pantothenic acid comes from, the biggest source is basil, and also you get in a lot of other your vegetables and meats and stuff like that too. So good diet is essential for all this stuff to work right. And you can see for testosterone, vitamins A, C, E, and zinc. Zinc is probably one of the biggest deficiencies there is. You can tell if you have little white spots in your fingernails, that could be a zinc deficiency. Now zinc is needed for digestive function, to make hydrochloric acid for your stomach. That's how you digest 80% of your food, is through your stomach, the hydrochloric acid. So if you don't have zinc, your stomach can't digest. You need zinc for the testosterone and estrogen for the reproductive function. You need zinc for immune system. You need zinc for the pineal gland to make from tryptophan, serotonin and melatonin. You might have heard those before. Those are two very important hormones in the body. Serotonin helps you for your function and staying awake and keeping your mind calm and happy and having focus. Melatonin is what helps you sleep at night and renew your body and renews all the cells in your body. And you're deficient in melatonin, that's when you get cancer very easily. So zinc, super important. And zinc, the good just normal source is pumpkin seeds, but it's in a lot of other foods. It's a lot of meats and vegetables and things like that also. But if the stomach doesn't work, you can't absorb a lot of these things. And with the stress, what happens is the stomach stops working. If anyone has questions too, just let me know. I know I get kind of fast in this. I'm used to teaching doctors and stuff like that and everything. So if you need me to explain something, just raise your hand. So stress effects. There's an autonomic nervous system that kind of is what it sounds like. It's like an automatic nervous system. It does all the stuff you don't think about. Controls your heart rate, your breathing, your hormones, your digestion. It's a supercomputer that keeps every cell in your body functioning in this beautiful symphony to work correctly. Now, the autonomic nervous system, when you get put into the stress reflex, that is called the sympathetic nervous system. And with that, you're going to have an increased heart rate because pretty much your body thinks you're getting chased by the lion or the grizzly bear or whatever you want to call it. Right away, you just have the shock and your body goes, when you would release the stress hormones, your body within split second reacts. Heart rate goes up. You're going to decrease your digestive function because your body's like, I don't need to digest anything right now. I need to run or fight. That's what I need to do. So it's going to take all the blood from the internal viscera of the organs and it's going to put it into your extremities to either run or fight from something. At first, you're going to have a big immune system spike, but it's going to decrease over a long period of time. So it's going to decrease your immune system over long term. And you're going to have more short-term energy because you're using blood sugar. Blood sugar is the quickest way to get energy to your body and muscles. But the blood sugar should really be reserved only for the brain and spinal cord, for the nervous system to use. That's what it uses. So when you're constantly using blood sugar for all your other function, your brain and nervous system won't work as well. And you have increased inflammation in the body because the body's just like, we need inflammation, we need to support everything right now because it's just thinking short term, it's not thinking long term. Now at the opposite, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, this has a decreased heart rate, much lower. And it's going to have increased digestion, increased hormonal function, increased immune system function. And also you're going to be burning your fats for energy. So this is more long-term endurance energy, okay? And from burning sugars, you get 4 kilocalories a gram of energy. And when you burn fat, you get 9 kilocalories a gram per energy. You get more than twice as much energy from burning fat as you do burning sugar. And you're going to have decreased inflammation from the rest and digest nervous system. Okay. Now, what's going to happen with stress effects on the mind? Critical thinking is something that's going to be affected a lot. You're going to be using more instinct versus intuition. Now, instinct is just like you don't think about it, you just do it, right? Now, intuition, when you have a more of the rest and digest nervous system, it also takes instinct into account, but also is there something better to do? So you have much better cognitive mental function when your body, your nervous system is in a much calmer state. Digestion, most of your neurotransmitters are made in the gut. 95% of serotonin is made in the intestines. So if someone's having issues with kind of mental function, depression or something like that, you know, the biggest thing to look to is food, and we're going to talk about that also because whatever you put in your gut is going to affect what's going on in here, and you're not going to have proper function to make those neurotransmitters that you need for up here. Immune system, allergic reactions. that could totally wipe out your thinking. There's certain things I go eat, even if it's in a healthy store like Whole Foods or something like that. I'll go eat something, if it has some ingredients in it that I'm sensitive to, instant brain fog, grumpy, can't function, can't even feel like I'm in my body that well, can't function that well, get really tired, sleepy. It happens almost within minutes. So if you have an allergic response like that to something, it could really, a lot of times, affect the brain, the nervous system, the emotions a lot. There's a woman years ago in the 80s, she was a medical doctor in New York, I think, toward Canada, and she was mostly working with kids and allergic reactions. And she was working with one child, and then the mom brought the child back a few months later, and the child was almost cured of its severe allergic reactions. And she goes, well, what'd you do? Oh, went to a doctor up in Canada, and they gave my child homeopathy, and the child just calmed down. So this medical doctor, being very open-minded, looked more into it, and she did experiments herself with using different natural things to help kids with allergic reactions, and they wouldn't have the fits that they were throwing at school anymore or at home or eating certain foods like this. It would just throw a kid into a tantrum and won't be able to focus right and start crying, just be uncontrollable because they have an allergic reaction. It totally affects the mental state of things, and it could just be from your body is just flaring up to something in your environment. Okay, sugar and fat metabolism and mental function. As we talked about before, you need sugar function for the brain and nervous system for it to work right. Now, if you take the body's function off of burning sugar and back to burning fat, well then the brain's going to be happy because it's going to have all the energy it needs, and the spinal cord and the peripheral nervous system are going to be happy because it's going to have all the energy it needs from using the sugars itself, because the rest of the body is going to be using burning fat to get its energy. Inflammation for brain and hormones. Inflammation in the brain, again, it goes back to the allergic reactions. Inflammation in the brain, you just can't think straight, foggy thinking, you don't have as much critical thinking. Your brain starts chunking things down to just bigger functions instead of doing the smaller, minute functions it can really do well. And unresolved stress is going to erode something called your telomeres of DNA. So why do we get old? Why do we just don't live forever? Our cells have DNA in it, and DNA determines when one cell dies and replicates the next one, it sends over the information, the program of cell, what are you going to be and what are you going to do. Now, as we replicate cells, there's little end caps on the DNA that keep it from unraveling. It's called the telomeres. Now, every time our cell is going to replicate, we lose a little bit of those telomeres on the DNA, so each time the cell gets a little bit different, and when we get older in life, the cells don't reproduce as well as anymore as like when we're young. Now, increased stress creates more, those telomeres, they wear out faster. When you reduce the stress, those telomeres can go a lot longer. So this is how a lot of people could do things like drink and smoke and have a good time, and it doesn't seem to affect them as much because they're happy, they're less stressed. And then people who eat everything like organic and watch out for every little thing, and they're falling apart because they have such a high load of stress in their body, it doesn't matter if they're trying to have a good environment, but everything's still breaking down. Question?
I have a question on that. You mentioned the DNA and you mentioned the person and aging.
Mm-hmm.
Are you speaking, does this specifically stay with the person, or is this something where, let's say, like a young person that's stressed and they're 25 to 35 years old, they haven't had children, is this something that could affect that DNA to the point where it can affect their children? If
Oh
they
yeah,
have children
definitely.
down the line?
Yeah, because if they're not giving their children as good a complete copy of their DNA, the child's not going to benefit as much. That's why it's better for people who have children younger. When you're getting older, you can get more chances that something will happen with a child without more stresses going on and stuff like that.
Never heard that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and science is looking now at telomeres with DNA, and they're experimenting with something called telomerase, which is the enzyme that keeps it all functioning well, and they're doing experiments where they think within the very near future they're going to get us living a lot longer. So it's all just new information coming up in science lately.
There's a really good book on that called Spring Chicken.
Oh, really? Great.
I read it not too long ago. It talked about all the telomeres and all the experiments.
Who's that by? Do you know?
I don't remember the
I'll take a look. Yeah, a couple other people are talking about it. Greg Braden talks about it a lot. He does a lot of self-work help stuff. He's a scientist and into all like kind of holistic natural things too, and that's where I learned about it from. So this is just starting to come out now. They just figured it out in the 80s, but it takes a couple decades to get out more mainstream, of course. All right, so what do we do about stress? All right, this is the biggest thing. I wanted to just give you some simple things that you could do day to day for yourself. All right, one of the biggest things is what do you eat? What do you put in your body? Candace Pert was a head of a parole board in Ohio, I think it was. In the 80s, she put this book out, and she was on Oprah back then and everything, and everyone was talking about it for a minute, but then it just kind of died off. She would work for parolees and have them eliminate certain foods out of their diet. Wheat and grains, corn, milk, soy, refined sugars, and some oils. Now, these parolees, when they would get out, 80% of them would not commit another crime. It got to the point where the judge would say, are you doing Miss Stitt's diet? That's all he asked. If they said yes, he would let them out on parole. And it was like miraculous. And she has one little book out, and it all just kind of fell away. But this is something that's really huge, because things you put in your gut, like I said, it's going to affect your neurotransmitters for your brain. I could tell you a little anecdotal story. Back in the 90s, when I was in school in Southern California, driving with a very good friend of mine. She's my girlfriend back then, and we're still very, very good friends. She's a doctor now, too. And we stop at Jack in the Box. We're somewhere down in San Diego, get some tacos, burgers, whatever, something, bad, quick food, fast food. Well, we eat really quick, and about 15 minutes later, we're getting one of the worst arguments we had of our whole relationship. Just out of nowhere, just boom, just blew up. And about an hour or two later, she apologized. She goes, I don't know what happened to me. Like, I don't understand why I got so angry. I shouldn't have been angry, and this and that. And the bad foods you put into it could have an effect that quickly where it could just change your mental state from allergic reactions, affecting the gut, affecting the brain. So these are some of the biggest things to avoid. Wheat and grains, anthropologically, we're not designed to eat a large amount of them. Now, in the past, probably a couple thousand years, we've been eating more of them, but we take much longer than that to evolve and change. So yeah, your body can handle some of it, but for the most part, you don't want to make it a full staple of your diet. Now, there's other things more modernly that are affecting it and adding more stress in these foods, and that's like GMOs and things like that too. Corn is another highly genetically modified crop. Plus, corn starch is in almost everything that we've been eating since we've been very little. So when we constantly eat something all the time, our body can get sensitive to it. Because whatever you put in your body, and if you're exposed to stress with it, your body could actually relate it as a trigger for stress in the future. So that's how we get a lot of allergies stuff too. Milk products, butter's okay, but a lot of the milk products have casein in it. They cause a lot of health issues too. And now a note about the milk and the wheat. I have patients that are very wheat sensitive, dairy sensitive, and they go to Europe and they can eat whatever they want, they're fine. They come back here and they react to it again. So in other countries it could be better. Things are so mass produced here that I think a lot of the quality control is taken out of it. So when I was in Paris in November, I ate bread every single day. I felt better than when I was here, like trying to avoid foods like that. So it just depends where you are too, if these foods are going to affect you a lot or not. Soy is something that really shouldn't be used that much for human consumption. We make everything out of soy now. But back in the early 1900s, over in Asia, they only used it for about 8% of their diet. It was mostly used for sauce that was well fermented, or miso, or just a garnish. But here we're making everything out of it. And soy has a lot of estrogens. It has a lot, and if we have too much of a hormone, we imbalance the other hormones. So if we have too much estrogen, it depletes testosterone or progesterone in your body for male or female, and both of those depletions will cause issues. It has a lot of something called phytic acids or phytates, and phytic acids will block absorption in your small intestine to get all your good nutrients and actually break down the villi, which are the little finger-like projections in your small intestine where the food goes in between for more surface area to absorb it. Actually, on livestock feed that is made of soy, they warn not to give too much to the animals because it will disrupt their intestines, but we don't get the warnings like that for humans. So soy is just something that shouldn't be eaten that much. And refined sugars and some oils. Canola oil, very inflammatory. corn oil, vegetable oil in general, very inflammatory. Best things to use are very good extra virgin olive oil. If you gotta use something with a higher heat, use a peanut oil. The coconut oils are pretty good now. Back when they first came out, they were a little bit iffy, but they're producing the coconut oils a lot better now. Grass-fed organic butter can be good. So those are a lot of good things that you should use. Avocado oil, I think, is something new out now too that's pretty good. So yeah, you could eat the wrong oil and that's what I said, one of the foods that I have an issue with when I go to Whole Foods and I eat something from their fresh hot bar or something like that. If it has canola oil in it, right away I can't think within about 5-10 minutes. Until it goes right to my head. All right, exercise. Now, a lot of people do high impact exercise, but what's very, very important for your autonomic nervous system is the very low range aerobic exercise. And some people, when they do aerobic, they're already way out of their aerobic, what we call range, and they're in the anaerobic, which is like the weightlifting range. So here's a little scenario of what you can use to monitor yourself to make sure you're in a lower aerobic range. And you can use a heart rate monitor. And it's out of this book in Fitness and Health. I recommend that if you're very into exercising, get this book. Dr. Maffetone is one of my teachers through the International Board of Applied Kinesiology. One year he was the Ironman Coach of the Year, voted by Ironman Magazine. He worked with a lot of Ironman athletes, and he examined them very closely through putting them on treadmills, having them exercise, and analyzing the gas that they were breathing, coming in and out, and checking their CO2 levels, oxygen levels, and everything. You can tell a lot of things from that. And he figured out the perfect heart range for somebody. It's called the 180 minus your age. So you take the number 180, subtract your age. And there's a few other little anecdotes here. If you've recovered from a major illness or problem like that, you want to subtract 10. If you haven't been exercising too much, you want to subtract 5. If things have been okay, you don't need to subtract anything. But if you're also like a very active athlete, like almost professional level, add 5 to that number. Now that number should be the top range of your heart rate if you're wearing a heart rate monitor or monitoring from a watch or something like that. And then you put 10 under that, and that should be the range that you'd be in for your perfect aerobic level. Now, that is also, it's just where you should start from, but also what you could do is, since you're at a very low level, you could train your heart to work calmer, and you could increase your activity level over time, and he tells you how to do that in the book and everything. So the athletes he would train, he would take some of them and make them start walking again almost, because they were at such high heart rates, they would burn out easily in their endurance races. He'd have them walking and start calming their heart down to watch their heart rate, and then they could start increasing their speed and effort while keeping the heart low again. And then they would just blow everyone's doors in the races. So it's a big thing about exercise, and make sure you have that good aerobic base, because you should have the good aerobic base before you're doing other big things like weightlifting and stuff like that, because this will protect your body from being in that stressed out state. And walking is such an important thing. People don't walk much. People drive to work, drive home, they drive to the gym, they get on a treadmill, they run, they lift weights, but when you're walking, use the little aspects of your muscles, the little intrinsic muscles that move your spine and body. And when that is strong, you have less spinal problems, leg and arm problems in the long run, because you're actually walking and using those little muscles. That's what we're designed to do. We're designed to walk mostly, and a lot of people just don't walk. All right. Ions. Now, ions are the electrical charges that are on atoms and molecules. And our body should be able to balance them. When we breathe through our nose, this thing's called turbinates, which kind of create a spiral of the air we're breathing through our nose. And one side's positive, one side's negative, and our body should know how our electrical balance is, and it will change actually our nostril breathing as we need to change what's going on with the electrical potentials in our body. And this has been demonstrated that it'll actually change over all day long of what you need to balance your body electrically between positive and negative. Excess positive ions lead to stress. There's one aspect where positive is not good. More negative ions help your body relax. So negative ions, this is where They're more abundant like in the seaside or by rivers or waterfalls and nature where there's a lot of green. These are the happy ions. They relieve pain, they speed healing, they also decrease bacteria and viruses. Now positive ions, this is what you get around concrete and electrical and paint and carpet and all these artificial materials. That creates positive ions. Also the full moon, that's more positive ions. And when it's really windy, you ever just like have really windy days and you're just like angry because it's so windy? Again, that's the positive ions. And they create anxiety, they create depression, they can create headaches, migraines, breathing and heart rate problems, sleep problems.
I believe the full moon thing, because when I worked on an Alzheimer's unit and it was a full moon, you could see a total change in all of the residents.
Oh, yeah.
Every symptom, everything was elevated.
Mhm.
Like that 1 or 2 days right around there was always very, very challenging. But I've never heard it, I feel validated now.
Yeah.
I never heard that before. I thought maybe it was me, but that every single time.
Yeah, in law enforcement too, they always expect around a full moon, and when you're working in an ER, work always gets much busier around a full moon of all those things. And the ion is one aspect of it. I don't think it's the full aspect. It has to do with gravitational forces and stuff like that too, but the ions is one aspect that they can measure. So what can you do about ions? Well, get out into nature more. Have plants in your office. Get one of those salt lamps, like those pink salt lamp things. When you put the heat in the salt lamp, it exudes negative ions. Keep one of those around at home, on your desk, something like that. Just get some more in your artificial environment. Try to get some more negative ions.
Is that the Himalayan salt?
Yeah, the Himalaya salt lamps, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what they use them because it just exudes negative ions. It's a calming effect. You could do breathing exercises. If you feel like, hey, I need a little bit extra right now, if you want to increase the negative ions, you just inhale through only the left nostril, so close the right one and just breathe in. If you want to get out positive ions, you exhale through the right nostril. And some yogic meditation practices, they'll have people do that, breathe back and forth, and they'll be in a totally blissed out state. So don't do this and get pulled over on your way home from work, but you might get in trouble. But yeah, it's just a good way to get a relaxation effect going in your body if you have too much going on. All right, meditation. Whenever I have a patient come in to me and like, I feel great, how can I keep this going? I tell them meditate. If everyone meditated, I'd be out of business. I can get into fashion or art or something like that. Meditation is pretty much the best medication. It fixes everything. I mean, there's studies that have been coming out for years about how meditation could just across the board help everything. What does meditation do? It gets us back to our normal function outside of stress. That's what it does. It just gets us to shut off our mind and focus on one thing. You don't have to do some spiritual thing where you're like standing on one foot and oming. All you have to do is sit in a nice, relaxed, upright position and just focus on your breathing. That's all you have to do. You could add other things into it, but it's just you're focusing on your breathing. Thoughts come in your mind, you're like, okay, that's there, I'm just going to let that go and I'm not going to dwell on that. That's all meditation is. If you do that 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes twice a day, it'll change your life. It also builds awareness in life because when we shut this off more, we could sense a lot more what's going on. I had this yoga teacher in Los Angeles when I was in school out there, and his yoga classes would have like 130 people in there, and all these stars and celebrities are in there and everything. And this guy was just like the guru. He was amazing. I mean, it's just I'm spoiled after him of all the yoga instructors. And I figured out later what he would do if he was training anyone to be an instructor like him. He would make them go on a 10-day retreat where all you do is meditate and you don't talk. And that would bring their awareness up so much. So one day I'm in this, one of his yoga classes, and I just had a very bad thing come up between me and a partner at the time. And I was just so stressed out, and we're trying to talk and figure things out and arguing. She goes, you know what, let's talk later, go do some yoga, I'm going to go to work, we'll talk later, okay? I'm in this yoga class, and 5 minutes in, I just give up. I said, forget it. I just lay on the floor, and what they call child's pose, I'm just sitting there breathing. And in about a minute or two, he walks up right in back of me while the whole class is going, like 130 people, and he goes, even if you had the worst argument with your partner today, if you're just sitting here and breathing, you're going to improve your day. And he walks away from me. And I'm just like, how does this guy know that? He was able to just tune in of exactly what was going on with me. And that's the type of awareness that meditation could bring in. It's not something woo-woo, it's just it brings in natural, just knowing and instinct, which is one of our natural things. When we shut this off, we could sense that more. All right. The easiest way to start, I mean, there's a great app called Headspace. You just get it on your phone. They give you like 10 lessons for free. It just teaches you the basics of super basic meditation. There's a lot of other more advanced things you could do. There's great websites with it. Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you ever heard of him, he has a great website with a lot of great meditation CDs and programs on there for different health issues and stuff like that. And he does research with brain scans and monitoring health and everything with his meditation products. So if you don't know what to do, where to start, that's a great place to start. All right. So if you want to create good things in your life, if you want to meditate, if you want to do positive affirmations, all stuff, but if you have an underlying bunch of garbage going on, you're not going to do yourself 100% good. It's like painting over rust. You paint over rust, it looks nice and everything, but within a short amount of time, the rust is going to come right back through the paint again. So what we have to do is we have to get the garbage out at times also. And this is a great book about how to do that. Dr. Hawkins once had the largest psychiatric practice in the whole country. He also co-authored a book called Orthomolecular Psychology with Linus Pauling, who is one of the Nobel Prize laureates. And that book was the first book to ever say that vitamins could affect your mental emotional state, even in a psychological, psychiatric type of way. And it was groundbreaking back at the time in the 80s when the book came out. Well, Dr. Hawkins, he figured out, this is how you get out the garbage. Because when we have something bad going on in our life, something stressful, what we do? We just shove it down, push it away. Can't deal with that right now. Got to keep going, right? He says, no, you got to stop, and you really got to focus on it to get it out. So any just rough emotion, anger, sadness, frustration, rage, whatever it is, if you just give yourself a few minutes and sit down somewhere and focus on it and feel that energy in your body. Let's say it's anger. Let's say you just have anger going on. Sit down and just feel yourself. Where is it in your body? You could feel like it's stemming from somewhere, like, oh, maybe I feel it right here. I feel anger right here. And if you just welcome that anger on your terms, welcome it and be like, all right, I'm angry. There it is. And just focus on it. You'll actually wear out the energy of it and deplete it. And you'll process it and you'll get it out. Now, there's a lot of other things you could do to help that happen even quicker and in better ways. You could use all your senses on it, which I call modalities. And there's a lot of other different techniques to get into this, like neuro-linguistic programming and things like that. But if you focus on that anger, say it's right here, ask yourself, what color is it? Where is it in my body? Is it moving? Does it stay still? Does it have a sound? Does it have a texture? Does it have a taste? Is it saying anything? Look at it with all your senses. Can I taste it? Can I smell it? The more senses you use on it, the more different angles you'll process it from, and you'll just get it out. And afterwards, you'll just feel relief. You'll feel like just lightness. You'll feel so much lighter afterwards. And you might have to do that over and over and over again. When I first moved out to the DC area from the West Coast about several years ago, a couple of my business things didn't work out at first, and I worked for this huge natural health clinic. Like, we were seeing over 650 people a week, and they wanted to up it to 850, so we're like on our butt to increase the business and everything. And I hated it. It was awful. I was in a contract, I had to stay there. It was awful. So doing this stuff saved me. Like, it changed my life, just being able to do this every day and get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. It was really a gift for me because I got more into this and recommend it for my patients. So yeah, you got to give yourself time to focus on any uncomfortable emotion and just get it out. Because the only way you're going to get it out is by focusing on it. All right, and then after you get something out, what do you want in return? You got to think about that too. Otherwise, you just walk down the street or you go back to work, and when you have that void within you that you want to fill up with something, it's just going to fill up with the first thing that comes along, or the first person that comes along. So instead of the anger, like, what do you want? Do you want success? Do you want love? Do you want health? Like, what do you really want? You could just focus on your emotions and feelings to replace that void you create in yourself by getting the bad out. The best way to create something is to feel it. So when you say, like, oh, I want success, well, your subconscious is so literal what it does is it'll say, okay, well, they want success, they'll keep wanting it. We'll give you wanting success, that's what you'll get. But if you feel to yourself, I am successful, and what would the feeling of you being successful be? Go back to a period in your life where you were successful at something, or you did have love, or you did have health, or whatever it is, where you just felt calm and relaxed. Feel that feeling of what it feels to be what you want, and just feel that feeling in your body, visualize it in your body, and just focus on that for a few minutes and just let it go and go about your day. Do that a couple times a week or a couple times a day to fill back into your body what you want after you took some negative emotions out. And have gratitude for already having your success or love or health or whatever you want. Have the gratitude that, oh, I have it already, because when you feel it, your subconscious will start being aware of what's going on for you to get there better. It'll be more aware of, how do I get there? This is what I do. Where if you're always focused on, oh, I don't have this or that or this, or I want this or that or this, you'll just keep going in that circle of wanting it. All right. Now, if you need more help, there's something called neuro-emotional technique. It's funny, just 2 weeks ago on Grey's Anatomy, they had this on there, and I'm like, oh wow, that's what we do. That's weird. It's getting like mainstream now. So neuro-emotional technique, this is something I've been doing with patients and been getting done to myself for about 10 years now. Emotions can get locked within the body. When you have stresses going on, your body secretes different chemicals called neuropeptides. Those neuropeptides can bind into your body to organs and muscles and tissues, can bind to anything in the body, your brain, nervous system, anything. And there's ways of getting those to release so you're not repeating these patterns or feeling the same feelings over and over again. So it helps with these unresolved stresses, because sometimes we get over things and we're fine, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're still playing over and over and over again something happened when we were 6 years old. And these chronic stress patterns could lead to health issues too, because it's affecting your stomach or your kidney or your brain or whatever, your uterus. I mean, then that organ's going to be having a stress and a problem too. It's not going to be able to function properly. So we just had some research done on this in the past couple of years, and if you have Amazon Prime, there's a documentary about the research that was done. It's called Stressed. It's a pretty good documentary, and I know about half the doctors in there, my friends and colleagues. But what they did is they took a group of cancer survivors. Now, as cancer survivors, they had such trauma emotionally of going through the whole issue of cancer and surviving it. And this is why a lot of people with cancer, it recurs again, because you have these traumas. You can have the traumas in your life before cancer, but then once you have cancer, that's a whole other traumatic thing. And that's why a lot of these people have reoccurrences, because your body never lets go of these emotional traumas. So they took people and they did MRI studies when they focused on what their stresses were from cancer. And you can see certain areas lit up in the brain. You can see the little orange areas where the arrows are pointing to. That's where they found in this one person that the stress centers lit up in their brain when they thought about the cancer stuff, and they got the cue from the practitioner, I want you to think about what's going on and what you had in your past. Then they did the procedure of neuro-emotional technique to help them release these things. And then after, you see, totally gone on the MRI. And when they were doing these procedures on people, the technicians for the MRI, they're like, what are you doing? How are you changing their brains this quickly? And just by doing some of these holistic techniques to help the people release these emotions. And yeah, this is what was on Grey's Anatomy 2 weeks ago. They have a clip of them doing exactly this with one of the guys getting therapy in there. And they also checked it with heart rate too, and they've done this with PTSD in the past. There's a Dr. Zadkoy, he's out of New Jersey, and he had a military grant here in DC, a $2 million military grant with Marines helping with PTSD. And what he would do is he would monitor their urine levels for amino acids, he'd look at some other blood work, and he'd also work with them with neuro-emotional technique, and he had an 80% success rate with decreasing the markers for PTSD. And the people he was working with, they're like, if you had an 8% change, we'd be happy. But they had an 80% change. And yet there's just something, okay, we did this project and he swept it under the rug, and no big change with this or anything. But he wrote a couple of books about this and everything. One of it's called Misdiagnosed symptoms of adrenal fatigue or something like that. But yeah, these things are very doable. We can get people with these big type of mental emotional issues, we can get a lot of these fixed. So you can see here our heart rate just changes too from when people would focus on something, some sort of stress in their life, and then they do the procedure of neuroemotional technique and they do the procedure again and the heart wouldn't have the same type of reaction. All right, so the biggest thing is, remember, with mental emotional stresses, yeah, it can be emotional things that happen, it could just be under a lot of physical mental stress, but you gotta realize all the other things going on too. You gotta remember the physiology, what are you eating, how are you exercising, do you have some structures in your body that are just bothering you, do you have injuries that aren't resolved, do you have neck pain, low back pain, hip pain, stuff like that, that's just kind of chronic and ongoing, do you have energetic, maybe interference that's going on. Another thing with the energetic interference, try to sleep with your phone next to you, or like a clock radio next to you, or try to have the electrical cords running close to you in the bed. Try to keep all that stuff away from you when you're sleeping at night. Because again, while you're sleeping, you're exposed to electromagnetic radiation that could have a big stress on your body too. So all these things, any of them could lead back to mental emotional stress if it's not primarily from that also. Okay? Now, does anyone have any questions at all?
Tell us more about the
No, sir.
Thank you. Yes,
Tell
Stephanie?
us more about the muscle testing that you do.
Okay.
Is that related at all to this?
Yeah,
Or
well,
is
that's
that
what the
something-
neuro-emotional technique is. They use muscle testing to figure out what's going on. Because if you think about something that has a subconscious strain in your body, it's going to shut down your nervous system that easily. So does anybody want to see a demonstration of neuro-emotional technique? So some of the biggest stress kind of areas in life, 1 to 6 years old is very big, but also like getting out of high school, starting college, and also getting out of college into your career, those are really big ones, okay? So we're gonna have you think about a couple of those situations and see if it weakens your nervous system at all, okay?
Okay.
All right, let me borrow your arm here. So we're gonna do what's called a muscle test. I'm not testing how strong her muscle is, I'm just seeing if the nervous system's gonna turn it on and lock it into place. Hold this up, I'm gonna push down. Okay, push up. Okay, now I push there, it just locks in place. Let's try this one. Push up here. Same thing there. So I push up, it locks in place. Now, let's see. A good screening just to see, let's go through transitions out of school. Think about when you're leaving high school and starting college.
Okay.
Just visualize it. Pretend you're there. Hold this up strong. Push up. Strong. And it just, it weakens. Okay? Now, just stare at the wall in the back and push up again. Okay, but now again, think about getting out
Oh,
of high
I'm thinking
school.
about that again. Okay.
Now
Okay.
think about it again. Now think about just getting out of school and starting college. Push up. Okay. Think about graduating college and starting career.
Okay.
Push up. Yeah. So there's transitions from school. Think about the first time you ever remember being in school. First time as a little girl ever being in school.
Okay.
Push up. That's okay. But think about graduating college, graduating high school, starting college. Push up. Okay, so there's a weakness there, and we got to figure out where's the weakness coming from. So those acupuncture meridians, like backups for the nervous system, I'm going to check and see which one's the weakest one on her. Let this relax. Let it come down. So I'm just going to do some access points here for all the meridians. Hold this up. Push up. That's okay. Now, if there's a weak one, it'll create a weakness in the body. Push up. Not just goes weak, and I'll let go of these and push up. Go strong again. I'm going to check each one individually. Hold this. Hold this. Uh-oh. Hold this. All right, so this middle one here, hold up. That's related to the liver and gallbladder. So you gotta stop drinking all that cheap beer, okay? Cheap wine. No, I'm kidding. But her body's showing that the liver, gallbladder is the weakest link in her energetic system, and that's also where that autonomic nervous system ties into that too. So again, I'm going to have you think about getting out of high school and starting college. Push up. Okay, now I'm going to have her cover her liver meridian, right there, right under your rib cage. And now again, think about graduating high school and starting college. And push up. And all of a sudden it gets very strong, but let go of that. And again, think about getting out of high school, starting college. Push up. Push up. No? And it just goes weak. So what I'm going to have her do, I'm going to have her touch this point and just hold her forehead for a few minutes and think about that, just getting out of high school and starting college. Okay, so what I want you to do is touch right there.
Okay.
And put this hand over your forehead.
Okay.
Cover your whole forehead, hold your forehead. Just think about that for a few moments. Just think about transition from high school to college. Just think about that whole transition. If anything pops in your head, any stresses, anything that might just pop in your head, just examine it and look at it. I'm just going to let her breathe for a few minutes. So sit there and breathe and just hold this for a few minutes. This connects the liver, acupuncture meridian, with some reflex points that are in the forehead, which go to stomach and bladder, which are two organs that get stressed out the most. Those are the first things that kind of go when you have a big kind of stress affect your life. Okay, so we can see if she's cooked. If she's not done, then it'll just still be weak, and we'll see. All right, so let's see. So again,
really focusing.
really again, so think about it. Put yourself in that transition time from leaving high school and starting college. Push up. And now she could actually stand up while she's thinking about that and not almost fall over. Now I'm just going to have her touch the liver acupuncture meridian again to see if there is still a bit of a weakness there. Again, think about graduating high school, starting college. Push up. Okay, so that imprint, whatever she picked up there, and we didn't go into 10 years of therapy about it and ask her what color her notebooks were and if she was dating and all this stuff. We just had her just think about the whole situation, and her body just released those neuropeptides from within the autonomic nervous system and the acupuncture system to just not have that repeating stress going on anymore subconsciously. Okay, so thank you very much for coming up and doing that. And sometimes it has a life-changing event just doing that once. Sometimes people gotta go through layers and layers and layers of that. It just depends what's going on. And of course, looking at everything else in the life too, like looking at the diet and the exercise and things like that too, you have to look at all that at once because that's what we call the holistic aspect of it. Okay, anyone have a question about that?
Not that, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
So like, when people have like different stresses or let's say physical pains,
Mhm.
and they take medicine to make it like go away, like I'm one of the type, I don't take medicine at all. I just let stuff ride, you know, it'll take a little longer,
Okay.
but eventually it'll go away. So does that disrupt, you know, if you do like something like you just did with her, would that disrupt that? You know what I mean? Like if you're taking medications or stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, what? Now you're talking about pain medications or just
Yeah.
medication in general?
Yeah, just pain medication,
Okay.
whatever that's helping you
Yeah.
with whatever
Yeah.
pain you're experiencing.
So now if you have such bad pain, you think you're going to die and you can't sleep, take some Pembat. That's what a pain medication does. There's an emergency, but you're like taking off the signal that there's an emergency and ignoring it. So there's still an emergency going. There's still a fire somewhere in the body, but you don't want to hear the alarm anymore. So that's what a pain medication does. Also, what most pain medications do too is they'll stop your white blood cells from repairing and fixing and taking care of an infection. It stops their function, most pain medications also, all the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. It'll stop that function. So if it's that bad or you need pain medication, yeah, take it, but get really fixed so you don't need it anymore and get off it as fast as possible. That's the whole big thing.
Because your body will stop working and then it like depend on it, right?
Yeah, and you see what's going on lately with the opioid crisis and stuff like that. It's just, people getting hooked on these things. And I have a good friend who I'm not that close with anymore, but I see him through social media going through his 4th or 5th knee surgery trying to get it fixed, and now he's addicted to opioids because he's been going through so many of the surgeries. It's just really sad, And, once you go that far, if you control your life, you can't function normally without it anymore because it kind of took over your nervous system, and now you're dependent on those. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering like, so if you did something like with him in general, like what you did with
So,
me, like
yeah.
would that work on him?
Yeah. So it will still show up. We're still able to do that if you are on the medications, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments, anything?
I've got one. So our agents and officers deliberately go into stressful situations.
Mhm.
So do you have any recommendations for how do you kind of maintain your higher order mental functioning when there's that constant temptation to go into that fight or flight mode?
Yeah, so a lot of things we talked about, doing the low impact exercise to train your body to do higher and higher stress workouts with the lower heart rates. That's definitely number one. Eating the really good healthy foods too, it's gonna help bring, more function into your body, using those neurotransmitters in the gut better. Meditation's very good too, because you can stay nice and calm and have much more awareness and keep much calmer. See, meditation, just doing it at home in your little corner in your favorite little chair or whatever, that's not really what it should be. It should be you learn to do it there, then out as you're walking out in the real world, you should have the same control of your nervous system as you do in that chair. That's really where it comes in the key. So when people meditate, they should use it out in the real world, like say, step out the street, almost get hit by a car, and you step back, okay, my body can calm back down, wasn't that big of a deal, but other people who don't have that training, they're flipping out and their heart rate's going for another 2 hours afterwards because they don't have the ability to keep their nervous system calm because they're not using the meditation techniques and things like that. So all these different types of things could help with that. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Yeah. And also, if they do have some past emotional traumas that are too much for them, to going through with that book, Letting Go, and fishing them out, or using something like neuro-emotional technique and fishing those out and getting those hot spots out of their nervous system and awareness to and out of their mind, because that will help when they go into a situation where they can still think clearly and do their work. Anything else? Any other questions? Does anyone on the phone have any questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you all. I hope I really gave you some good information. And if you have any other questions or whatever, you have my name on there. You can always just find me online. You can email me, things like that. Just send me any questions you got. I look forward to really just helping out if I can with this. Thank you.
Thank you.